My name is Megan Foster. I'm 30 years old and I've spent my entire adult life working hard and saving for my future. After years of strict discipline, I had built up $150,000 in savings, every single dollar, earned by my own effort, scrimped and put aside with the hope of a stable tomorrow. I believed my sacrifices would finally give me security and independence. But one Sunday evening at family dinner, that belief was shattered. My brother suddenly dropped a bombshell. He owed $100,000 in gambling debts and demanded that I hand over my savings and co-sign a mortgage to bail him out. "It's for family, Megan," he insisted, his voice dripping with entitlement, as if all the years I sacrificed meant nothing. I refused. My future was not his to take. But my parents turned on me instantly. "You're letting us down." My dad barked, his face red with anger. My mom's voice was cold, her eyes narrowing. "Think about what this means for all of us." The room grew heavy, their words cutting deep like blades of guilt. My heart pounded, but I held my ground and walked out, leaving their accusations ringing in my ears. 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a message from Mom: "Sign the mortgage papers for him, or don't come back." Her ultimatum stung, but I did not waver. By midnight, my hands trembling, I locked every shared account they could possibly reach. By morning, my phone showed 21 missed calls and angry texts, fury pouring in, accusing me of betrayal. What followed pushed me to the very edge, forcing a choice that would alter everything about my life. Before I continue my story, tell me, if you were in my place, would you sacrifice your future to protect family or stand firm to protect yourself? Share your honest thoughts in the comments. I truly want to hear your perspective. Growing up in a Charlotte suburb, our family seemed picture perfect to neighbors. My dad, a sales manager, spent his days sealing deals for an insurance firm, always in sharp button-downs. My mom, an accountant, managed meticulous ledgers for a small business downtown, her desk buried in spreadsheets. My brother Brandon, 3 years older, was their pride, the one they always turned to first. To outsiders, we were the model middle-class family: 2 kids, a neat house, a minivan in the driveway. But beneath the surface, things were uneven, and I felt it from a young age. As a young girl, I threw myself into school. Numbers were my refuge, their logic a comfort I could rely on. In 5th grade, I won a math award at a regional contest, clutching a certificate I couldn't wait to show. I pictured my parents' faces lighting up with pride. But that day, Brandon had a basketball game, and they chose to cheer from the sidelines instead. "We'll look at it later," Mom said over the phone, her voice distracted. Later never came. The certificate gathered dust on the kitchen counter for weeks. It wasn't the first time. Brandon's games, his school plays, even his average grades always took precedence. Their voices grew louder for him, their smiles wider when he walked in. By middle school, I stopped chasing their approval. I focused on what I could control: my grades, my goals. I'd spend evenings in my room solving equations or reading about budgeting, dreaming of a life where my choices mattered. Their focus on Brandon didn't hurt as much when I had my own path. At school fairs, I'd weave through booths alone, the chatter of families and laughter of kids filling the air. Neighbors would stop praising our family's closeness, oblivious to the gap I felt. Those community picnics with kids racing down quiet streets and parents sharing lemonade masked the imbalance at home. As a teenager, I took control. I got a part-time job at a local bookstore, stacking shelves and ringing up customers after school. The work was tedious: dusty books, heavy crates, but it gave me freedom. My first paycheck, a small $80, felt monumental. I opened a savings account at the bank nearby, depositing every dollar I could spare. "You're so dependable," the bookstore manager said, her words meaning more than any from Mom or Dad. I'd bike home through Charlotte's calm streets, past tidy lawns, feeling a spark of pride. That job showed me I could build something without their support. Brandon, meanwhile, glided through life. He'd charm teachers with his quick wit, skating by with minimal effort. Mom and Dad never seemed to care about his unfinished assignments or late nights out. "Brandon's just figuring things out," Dad would say, brushing off another missed curfew. I'd overhear them at dinner, planning to fund his latest whim: new basketball shoes, a summer camp, while my own wins, like acing a math test, barely earned a glance. I didn't blame Brandon entirely. He was shaped by their leniency. But I knew I couldn't count on them to see my worth. Those years in Charlotte built me in ways my parents never grasped. The school fairs, the community picnics, the quiet hours in the bookstore, they were mine. I learned to set my own standards, to measure my value by my actions, not their attention. Mom and Dad saw a dutiful daughter, but I was laying a foundation they'd never understand until it was too late. By high school, I'd learned to rely on myself. The lessons of my childhood, figuring out how to stand on my own, pushed me to chase a future I could control. I set my sights on college not just as an escape, but as a way to build something solid. My grades were strong, my focus sharper than ever. I spent late nights studying, determined to earn a path out. My hard work paid off when I won a full academic scholarship to UNC Charlotte, a ticket to study finance without owing anyone a dime. Starting college was like stepping into a new world. UNC Charlotte's campus buzzed with opportunity, and I dove in headfirst. I majored in finance, drawn to its logic and precision. Classes on investments and budgeting felt like decoding a language I'd always wanted to speak. But scholarships didn't cover everything. Textbooks, meal plans, and dorm fees added up fast. I refused to ask for help, so I took a part-time job at the university's finance office. It wasn't glamorous filing paperwork, updating spreadsheets, but it paid my bills. I'd work afternoons, then study until midnight, balancing equations and expense reports with the same focus. My coworkers, mostly grad students, noticed my drive. "You're relentless," one said, half laughing as I triple-checked a ledger. That job taught me more than any textbook. Every dollar I earned was mine to manage. After 4 years, I graduated with honors, debt-free, and a finance degree in hand. I didn't pause to celebrate. I was already looking ahead. Charlotte's growing financial sector was the perfect place to start. I landed a job as a junior financial analyst at a mid-sized firm downtown, crunching numbers for corporate budgets. The work was demanding, but I thrived on it. My first paycheck, just over $2,000, felt like a milestone. I opened a high-yield savings account and started building my future, one deposit at a time. My life became a rhythm of discipline. I tracked every expense in a spreadsheet, from coffee runs to rent. I cut out anything unnecessary: no fancy dinners, no impulse buys. My apartment was small, a one-bedroom in a quiet complex, but it was enough. I'd cook meals in bulk on Sundays, freezing portions to save time and money. Every month, I set aside a chunk of my salary, watching my savings grow. By my mid-20s, I'd saved $50,000, a number that felt unreal. I started dabbling in small investments, index funds, low-risk bonds, learning the market through trial and error. A mentor at work, a senior analyst, taught me how to read market trends. "Patience pays off," she said, showing me how to diversify. I listened, applied her advice, and kept my portfolio lean. Avoiding debt was my mantra. I saw coworkers take out car loans or rack up credit card bills, but I stayed clear. I bought a used sedan outright, saving thousands over time. My colleagues would tease me about my frugality, calling me the budget queen during lunch breaks. I'd laugh, but I didn't mind. Every choice, every skipped latte, every calculated investment pushed me closer to my goal. By my late 20s, my savings hit $150,000. It wasn't just money. It was security, freedom, a life I'd built without relying on anyone else. Work wasn't just about the paycheck. I loved the challenge of analyzing data, finding efficiencies, and presenting solutions to clients. I'd spend hours refining reports, making sure every number was airtight. My boss praised my attention to detail, giving me bigger projects over time. I took evening classes to earn certifications, sharpening my skills. Outside work, I read finance blogs and listened to investment podcasts, always learning. My life was simple but focused: work, save, invest, repeat. I wasn't chasing wealth for show. I wanted a foundation that no one could shake. Looking back, those years were about proving I could stand alone. Every late night at the office, every dollar saved, every skill learned was a step toward a future I controlled. I didn't know then how soon that foundation would be tested, but I was ready. One Sunday evening, I arrived at my parents' house for our monthly family dinner. The routine was familiar: Mom's roasted chicken, Dad's stories about work, the clink of plates in the dining room. I settled into my usual seat, expecting the usual small talk. But tonight the air felt heavy, like something was waiting to break. Brandon sat across from me, his usual grin absent, his fingers tapping nervously on the table. Mom and Dad exchanged glances, their faces tight. I sensed trouble before anyone spoke. Halfway through dinner, Brandon leaned forward, his voice low but urgent. "I need your help," he said, eyes fixed on me. "I owe $100,000 from some bad bets. I need your savings to cover it, and you need to co-sign a mortgage for me." His words hit like a punch. My savings, $150,000 built through years of discipline, flashed in my mind. I gripped my fork, steadying myself. "No," I said firmly. "That money's for my future. I can't." Brandon's face darkened, his jaw tightening. "This is serious," he pressed. "It's my last chance to fix this." Dad cut in, his tone sharp. "You're part of this family. We help each other." Mom nodded, her voice softer but insistent. "Family comes first. You've got the means to save him." I shook my head, my stomach twisting. I'd spent years building my security, tracking every dollar, avoiding debt. Handing it over to Brandon, whose reckless choices I'd seen since childhood, felt like throwing it away. "I worked too hard for that money," I said, my voice steady despite the heat rising in my chest. "I won't risk my future for his mistakes." The table went silent, the tension thick. Brandon slammed his hand down, his plate rattling. "You're selfish," he snapped. "You think you're better than us, don't you?" Mom's eyes widened and she reached for his arm, but he pulled away. Dad leaned forward, his face red. "You're letting your brother drown," he said, voice low and accusing. I pushed back my chair, scraping the floor. "I'm not responsible for his debts," I shot back. "He made those choices, not me." Mom's voice broke through, cold and final. "If you won't help, you're choosing yourself over family." Her words stung, but I didn't waver. I stood, my hands shaking. "I'm choosing my future," I said, locking eyes with her. The room felt suffocating, their stares heavy with judgment. I grabbed my coat, heading for the door. Brandon called after me, his voice bitter. "You'll regret this." I didn't turn back. As I drove home, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom: "Sign the papers or don't come back." My heart sank, but not from doubt. Her ultimatum was a betrayal, a line drawn in the sand. I'd spent years building my independence, and they wanted to tear it down for Brandon's recklessness. I pulled into my apartment complex, my mind racing but clear. No one would touch my savings. I'd fought too hard, sacrificed too much. Their words, family duty, echoed, but they couldn't sway me. Sitting on my couch, I replayed the night. Brandon's desperate plea, Dad's anger, Mom's cold text. They thought they could guilt me into submission. But I wasn't the teenager who craved their approval anymore. I was a woman who'd built her own life, dollar by dollar, choice by choice. Their demand wasn't about family. It was about control. I felt the weight of their betrayal, sharp and raw, but beneath it, a fire burned. I was done bending to their expectations. My savings, my future, were mine to protect, and I wouldn't let them take that away. The next morning, my phone was flooded with 21 missed calls and texts. I woke to the screen lighting up, notifications piling on. Dad's name flashed first, his voicemail sharp and accusing. "You're being selfish," he said, his voice tight with frustration. "Your brother needs you, and you're turning your back on us." I deleted the message, my chest tight, but more kept coming. Mom's texts were relentless, each one heavier than the last. Family sacrifices for each other, one read. "You're breaking us apart," said another. I stared at the words, their guilt like a weight pressing down. I'd expected pushback after the dinner, but this was a storm. Then I noticed something worse. An email alert from my bank pinged multiple failed login attempts on an old shared account I hadn't touched in years. My heart raced. The account, a relic from my teenage years, once linked me to Brandon for family expenses. I logged in, hands shaking, and saw the timestamps late last night, just hours after I'd left their house. Brandon, I thought, my jaw clenching. He'd always been reckless, but this was a new low. I changed the password, enabled two-factor authentication, and locked every account I owned. My savings, my future, were mine alone, and I wasn't letting anyone near them. Needing air, I called my best friend Tara, and we met at a small cafe downtown. The place was quiet, the smell of coffee grounding me as I poured out the story. Tara listened, her eyes steady, her hand resting on mine. "You've worked too hard to let them take this from you," she said softly. "Your savings are your safety net, not their fix." Her words were a lifeline cutting through the fog of guilt. She didn't push solutions or judge. She just sat with me, her presence a reminder I wasn't alone. "You're stronger than they think," she added, squeezing my hand. I nodded, grateful, feeling a flicker of resolve. Later that day, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from my cousin Monica. "Brandon's been in debt before," she wrote. "He's drained Aunt Linda's savings and borrowed from Uncle Mark." "They never told you, because they thought it'd upset you." My stomach churned. Brandon's gambling wasn't new. It was a pattern, one my parents had enabled for years. Monica's message went on. "They've bailed him out twice already. Don't let them guilt you into this." Her words hit hard, exposing the truth I'd only half seen. My family wasn't just asking for help. They were leaning on me to clean up a mess they'd helped create. The calls and texts didn't stop. Dad left another voicemail, his tone colder. "You're tearing this family apart," he said, echoing Mom's earlier message. Mom sent another text. "Think about what you're doing to us." Their words piled up, each one a jab at my resolve. I felt trapped, caught between their expectations and my need to protect myself. I'd spent years building my independence, from my first paycheck at the bookstore to my career as an analyst. Giving in now would unravel everything. But the pressure was suffocating, their voices a constant drumbeat in my mind. Sitting in my apartment, I stared at my laptop, my bank accounts now secure behind new passwords. I thought about Tara's words, Monica's warning, and the life I'd built. Charlotte, once my home, felt like a cage closing in. For the first time, I let myself imagine leaving, starting fresh somewhere new, where my choices were mine alone. The idea was daunting, but it sparked something inside me. I wasn't ready to decide, not yet, but the thought of a new beginning took root. I'd fought too hard to let them pull me back into their chaos. Whatever came next, I'd face it on my terms. By Wednesday, the family's demands were suffocating. My phone buzzed with notifications, but this time it wasn't just calls or texts. Brandon had taken to social media, posting a long rant accusing me of abandoning our family. "She's got the money, but won't help her own brother." He wrote, his words dripping with resentment. The post spread quickly, liked and shared by distant relatives and old neighbors. Comments poured in. Acquaintances I hadn't spoken to in years called me cold, selfish, disloyal. "How could you let your family suffer?" one wrote. My stomach twisted as I scrolled, the weight of their judgment settling in. I didn't respond. Engaging would only fuel the fire. That afternoon, I heard a sharp knock at my apartment door. I opened it to find Dad and Mom standing there, their faces grim. "We need to talk," Dad said, brushing past me without waiting for an invitation. Mom followed, her eyes red, clutching a folder of papers. They sat on my couch, the air thick with tension. "You need to co-sign this mortgage for Brandon's debt," Dad said, his voice firm, sliding the documents toward me. "It's the only way to save him." Mom's voice trembled as she added, "We're family." We stick together no matter what. I stared at the papers, my heart pounding. My savings. My years of discipline flashed before me. I can't do this, I said, pushing the folder back. I won't jeopardize my future. Dad's face reddened. You're ungrateful, he snapped, his voice rising. We raised you, gave you everything, and now you turn your back on us. Mom reached for my hand, her tone pleading. Please, for the sake of our family, don't tear us apart. Her words stung, but I pulled my hand away. This isn't about family, I said, my voice steady. It's about Brandon's choices, not mine. The room fell silent, their anger and desperation hanging heavy. Dad stood pointing at me. You'll regret this, he said before storming out, Mom trailing behind, her shoulders slumped. I sat alone, the quiet deafening. But then my phone pinged with an email that shifted everything. It was from my colleague James, who'd recently moved to a financial firm in Austin. We're hiring senior analysts, he wrote. Higher salary, relocation support, and a fresh start. You'd be perfect. I read it twice, the words sparking hope. Austin, a city far from Charlotte's weight, far from my family's demands. The salary was nearly double my current pay, with a signing bonus to cover moving costs. I leaned back, letting the possibility sink in. It felt like a lifeline, a chance to break free. Late that night, my phone rang. Brandon's name lit up the screen. I hesitated, then answered. You're betraying us, he shouted, his voice thick with anger. You think you're above us, don't you? Running off with your money while I'm drowning. His words cut, but I'd heard them before. I'm not your solution, Brandon, I said, my voice calm but firm. You made this mess. Fix it yourself. He cursed, his voice shaking, but I hung up, my hands steady. I was done being their scapegoat. By morning, I'd made my decision. I replied to James, accepting the Austin job. The choice wasn't easy. Leaving Charlotte meant leaving everything I'd known, from my apartment to my routines. But it also meant freedom, a life where my savings, my future, were mine to protect. I started researching apartments in Austin, imagining a new skyline, new streets, a new beginning. My family's words, ungrateful, selfish, echoed, but they no longer held me. I'd built my life on my terms, and I was ready to take the next step, no matter what they thought. 2 weeks later, I stepped off the plane in Austin. The city's warm air hit me, a sharp contrast to Charlotte's weighty past. I'd packed light, leaving behind old ties and doubts. My new job with James at a sleek financial firm downtown was waiting, and I was ready to dive in. The office buzzed with energy, glass walls, open desks, a team dissecting market trends. I started as a senior analyst, poring over data to optimize client portfolios. My first project, streamlining a tech startup's budget, earned praise from James. You're a natural, he said, clapping my shoulder. I thrived on the challenge, my confidence growing with each tight spreadsheet and sharp presentation. Outside work, Austin felt alive. I met my coworker Kelly at a team happy hour. Her quick laugh and easy chatter made her an instant friend. She invited me to a food truck festival by Lady Bird Lake, where strings of lights glowed over crowded stalls. We shared tacos and cold drinks, the music and chatter washing away my tension. This city's got a pulse, Kelly said, grinning as we navigated the vibrant crowd. I joined local events with her, art walks, live music nights, feeling a sense of belonging I hadn't known in years. Austin's energy, from its bustling streets to its quirky charm, was pulling me in, but the past lingered. I started therapy with Dr. Margaret Cole, a calm, sharp-eyed woman whose office overlooked the Colorado River. In our sessions, I unraveled the knots of guilt and manipulation tied to my family. They made you feel responsible for their choices, Dr. Cole said, her voice steady. You're allowed to choose yourself. Her words helped me see their demands, Brandon's debts, Mom and Dad's pressure for what they were attempts to control me. Each session chipped away at the weight I'd carried, replacing it with clarity. I began to forgive myself for leaving, for refusing to be their solution. One evening, Tara called from Charlotte. How's Austin treating you? She asked, her voice bright. We chatted about my new routine, the office, the festivals, my tiny apartment with a view of downtown. "You sound happy?" she said, laughing when I described Kelly's obsession with food trucks. It was a light call, no heavy advice, just the comfort of a friend checking in. I appreciated it, her voice a small tether to my old life, but one that didn't pull me back. I was building something new, and Tara's call reminded me I could stay connected without being trapped. Then came a text from Monica, stark and sobering. "Brandon's gambling has gotten worse," she wrote. "He's in deeper debt now. Your parents remortgaged their house to cover it, but they're struggling to make payments." My heart sank, not from guilt, but from the inevitability of it. Dad and Mom had chosen to enable Brandon again, sinking themselves further. Monica added, "They're barely keeping up with bills." I stared at the message, the reality of their choices settling in. I'd protected my savings, my future, but their path was theirs to walk. I typed a brief reply. "Thanks for letting me know," and set my phone down. Austin was becoming my home. I'd hike the trails at Zilker Park on weekends, the city's skyline shimmering in the distance. At work, I took on bigger projects, mentoring junior analysts and leading client meetings. Dr. Cole's sessions gave me tools to process the past, letting me focus on the present. Kelly dragged me to a salsa dancing class where we stumbled through steps and laughed until our sides hurt. These moments, work, friends, therapy, wove together a life that felt mine. I wasn't running from Charlotte. I was building something better, something I'd earned. 6 months into my Austin life, I stood on my balcony overlooking the city. The skyline sparkled under the night sky, a reminder of how far I'd come. Cutting off my family wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Their demands, Brandon's debts, Mom and Dad's pressure had once tethered me to guilt. Now in Austin, I felt liberated, my days filled with purpose. My job thrived, my friendships grew, and I was building a life that reflected my values. The weight of their expectations no longer defined me, and for the first time, I felt truly fulfilled. A text from Monica brought news of home. "Brandon's in deep trouble," she wrote. "Creditors are suing him for unpaid debts. Your parents defaulted on their remortgage and the bank's threatening to take their house." The words stung, but not with guilt. I'd warned them, refused to enable their choices. Dad and Mom had chosen to bail Brandon out again, and now they faced the consequences. Monica's message ended simply, "I'm sorry it's come to this." I replied, "They made their choices." My heart ached for their struggle, but I wouldn't carry their burden. I found new purpose volunteering at a local community center, teaching personal finance to teens. Every Saturday, I stood before a group of high schoolers sharing lessons on budgeting, saving, and avoiding debt. Their eager questions, how to save for college, how to spot financial traps, lit a spark in me. I saw my younger self in them, navigating a world that didn't always teach you how to stand firm. Helping them felt like healing a part of me, giving them tools I'd learned the hard way. One student, a quiet girl named Sarah, thanked me after class. "I want to be in control like you," she said. Her words stayed with me, a reminder that my journey could inspire others. Looking back, I learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. Protecting my savings, my future, was the hardest choice I ever made, but it was the right one. True family doesn't demand you sacrifice your worth. They lift you up, respect your limits. My parents and Brandon wanted me to fix their mistakes, but I chose myself, and that choice built a life I'm proud of. Austin taught me I could thrive without their approval, that my value isn't tied to their needs. Thanks for staying with my story. Your support means the world. It's not easy to share these moments, but knowing you're out there listening makes it worthwhile. If you've faced family pressure, share your stories in the comments, inspire others to find their strength. Like and subscribe to join me on this journey. Let's keep learning, growing, and choosing ourselves.